Hi Year 8. So once you've got your background painted and your design is ready, you want to start drawing your design onto your background. So in this video I'm going to show you how I did mine. So I'm starting off with my painted background and I'm going to use one of our stencils, the Savtchenko ones, and I'm just going to quite quickly outline that using pencil, just so I can clearly see where I need to paint. Now your design might be different, but this is how I'm going to do mine. Then it's just a case of filling that in with whatever colour paint you want, remembering this is ready mixed paint, to use nice smooth brush strokes so that you get a lovely clean edge, so it's not broken up and it's lovely and smooth. And we just want to fill this figure in so it's a nice solid colour. It doesn't have to be black, but it depends on what you went for in your design. The next thing is I'm using the circle template to redraw the circle which I've lost, and I'm also using some nice soft colouring pencils, and I've already picked out my colours. So just using a dark green pencil to outline using my stencil, and that's just redrawing the circle that I've lost when I created the background. So then I took the semicircle stencil and used a light green pencil to outline the edges of my picture, using the semicircle again, just putting a little quarter circle on each edge. And that's where we got to with the semicircles. Okay, so we'll look at it the right way around. And then these are my pattern designs, so I'm just going to do a mixture of both of these. I quite like this petal effect, but I think to start off with I'm going to go with the little semicircles in the middle. I'm going to show you how to do that today. So to start off with, I'm just using more circles, more semicircles, a bigger one at the edge and then inside it a little one, and it's exactly that all the way around, and then another layer of those behind. So it's a really simple but effective pattern to create. So you can see here that I've already added some shading, some highlight and shadow to the circle in the centre, which I've decided to make into a globe, so it needs to look three-dimensional. So here I'm using a soft white pencil to create the highlight, just shading it, obviously decreasing pressure as I get to the centre so it looks a bit lighter. And then I'm adding some highlight to the figure as well, because if the figure was floating and the light was coming from the left, as it is if you look at the globe, then there would be a highlight on the Savtchenko figure. So I'm just adding a highlight to the left hand side of that figure. I decided to add more watercolour then to the globe, because it just didn't look three-dimensional enough. So I took some watercolour paint, some nice dark blue, and just outlined half of the circle, the dark side. Now, had I thought about this properly, I would have done this before I added the figure, because I ended up having to paint around it. I'm just softening out that paint with some clean water and just dragging that colour to soften out that line so it looks a little bit more blended. And then I do the same thing, but I use some acrylic paint, some white acrylic, which I will again soften out with some water, just so it's not such a harsh line. So I'm just getting my palette with a bit of water, and I'm just going to dab that on, because I don't want it to look like a smooth blend, because if it's going to look like a planet, I want it to have some texture. So it's like the surface of the planet. So I'm just softening out that white paint with some water and then blending it out. Just doing the top edge. And then a bit of blending. Then a little bit of green ready mix to try to bring the whole thing together. and just sort of going between the two colours now with my watercolour and my green ready mix to try and get that to look a little bit more three-dimensional. I think I'm going to need to work more on this in the second video because it's not quite there yet, but it's okay. So I will be coming back to this. And I'm going to have to overpaint my Savtchenko figure now because I've painted over it with the blue and the white. The next thing I did was to paint all of the little semicircle in the middle black. So just using the very tip of the brush with some watercolour paint, some black watercolour, using it quite opaque though, not transparent, so it looks nice and solid. And once I'd done that, I outlined all of those little semicircles with a soft black pencil, just so they stood out a little bit more. So I had to press quite hard on top of the paint, but it did end up showing up. Then I took the same pencil and did a little bit of shading on the edges of each of those shapes, just so it looked like a little bit of a shadow being cast. So pressing harder and then taking the pressure off to get a lighter shading tone. I did that all the way around. Then I took a nice soft yellow and put a little highlight on the top of each of the shapes. And that's how that pattern ends up looking with a little bit of shading. Finally, I added a dark blue shading all the way around the edge of that pattern, just to make it look as though it was casting a shadow onto the green outer circle. So I did that all the way around, just shading all the way around those shapes. So that's it for this video. In the next video I'll be showing you what I do on the edges, and that'll be the finished process. Join me then.